Welcome everybody to Mike's Morning Mug. The New Jersey drones. Okay, we're going to be diving deep into this topic. Now, I'm doing this one publicly here. Mike's Morning Mug videos are usually within the Connected Universe Portal website for members only. And I just provide the little snippets on a daily basis on the public side. But this is an important topic here on these drones. So I wanted to go ahead and discuss this publicly and give you a little idea also of what we do on the backside of the Connected Universe Portal. So, all right, the New Jersey drones. This has been going on at the time of this recording about 3 weeks now. And you're not finding a panic there in New Jersey, but it is driving people nuts that there is no explanation yet for what these things are. The government is remaining tight-lipped on what it really is. You're having congressional meetings with the FBI, and the FBI is saying, I don't know. Yeah, right, come on. Somebody there knows what's going on, and they're just not telling us. So that leaves us to speculate, what exactly these things are. Now, when you look at some of the footage, some of them look like miniature helicopters. They average about 6 feet in diameter. Some of them look like, I guess maybe more of your traditional type drones, but then some, and this is a really interesting one, where you have a professional photographer that went out there and took some photos, and it looks like a giant glowing ball of light. And so I'll give you the specs here for what type of camera this was. So this was it was captured by a professional photographer using Sony A7IV 600 millimeter lens, flying over Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. And I do want to thank my good friend Ronnie LeBlanc for sending me those photos. And it's like this giant glowing ball of light that seems to have some sort of other geometry within it. And so we'll talk about that one more toward the end, because that actually gets into some of my research that I've been doing here lately. My book, Portals to the Stars, just came out. So we'll talk about that one at the end. So let's break down. I just posted a blog article yesterday on my Substack, so connecteduniverse.substack.com. I'm going to link this down below. I'll also link Connected Universe Portal down there. So, okay. First explanation, obviously, is the hobbyist idea. And this is, if it is a hobbyist, for one, the FAA is going to be all over them for breaking the rules. You see this in all the articles that are coming out. You're breaking every FAA rule in the book. Okay, I've probably broken the FAA rules with my drone. They're not banging down my door. But these are much bigger. They've become a bit of a nuisance in the air. And of course, the nation is all abuzz about what's going on here with these sorts of things. So they're very large in nature, for one. That's really not so much the big deal about these particular drones. What is interesting about them is the apparent technology that is aboard these things, because they're unable to be detected by radar. So they're not emitting the different signals from a drone as we would expect. So when you send your drone up in the air, then you are in communication between the drone and your device. So it's using radio signals to be able to do that. This isn't emitting those. We don't know how it's communicating with whatever the source for the drone is. So we're not able to pick these things up on radar. It's not emitting signals that we would normally associate with drones. And the couple of times that police helicopters have gone up there to take a look, and that's only happened a couple of times. I still don't understand why we just have not gone up there. With a couple of times local police helicopters have gone up, these things turn off their lights and just seemingly disappear. So the helicopters are on approach and then gone. And they have no idea where the drone went. Of course, you're talking a night sky, so it just might be slipping under the cloak of darkness. So if it's a hobbyist, this would have to be somebody that was well funded. A couple different ways to look at it. One is it's probably not one single hobbyist. If this is the case, it's probably a group that has created something sophisticated, and there are a lot of very intelligent people out there. that do create their own drones and that sort of thing. And if it's just one person, it's going to be, what we're talking about, a billionaire playing a practical joke. I tend to not think it's the hobbyist approach. I mean, it's possible, yes, but I don't think it is. So then the second idea here is foreign adversary. So you've had one lawmaker here, Republican Jeff Van Drew, who has put out there that he believes that there's an Iranian mothership off the coast of New Jersey, not like right off the coast, but like out into the Atlantic and international waters, that is, launching these things. Some people have speculated the Chinese. Well, at least to me, if this was a foreign adversary that's been doing this for 3 weeks, we would have shot this thing down already. If we knew it was Iranian, if we knew it was Chinese, Russian, whatever, we would have already shot this thing down out of the sky. And the governor of New Jersey has already said, hey, you want to shoot them down? Have at it, shoot them down. We're tired of this nuisance here. But the US government hasn't done that. And this is something for which we have scrambled the jets in the past. When we have had things lurking in our airspace that we didn't know what was going on, boom, we sent up the jets. I mean, the big UFO flaps of the 1950s, like the UFOs over Washington, D.C., that's what we were doing. There's something up in the air, boom, we're scrambling the jets and we're going off to see what it is. We're not doing that here. We're just letting this happen. And so if we're letting this happen, that kind of tells us that our government is okay with whatever this is that is going on up there. So that leads us to this next step, that this is something our government is doing, that this is some sort of testing of technology. If it's not showing up on radar, then great. Now we have a type of technology in place that can't be detected by a radar, that enemy adversaries, when we deploy out to other countries, wouldn't be able to detect these things, except they can see them in the sky. So I guess turn off the lights, right? And that's what's been happening too, is lights been turning off and then people or the police helicopters can't see them. So is our government testing technology? This has happened in the past where people have reported UFO sightings and it actually turned out to be the government was testing some sort of technology. And there are military bases in the area. Another type of test that they could be doing here is our reaction. How are the people reacting? Long ago, when people saw these things, there was, I don't want to say panic. It's always been a thing that there's going to be this mass panic with UFO sightings. People have gotten a little skittish, right? That certainly happened. But other than like maybe War of the Worlds, where it was a radio broadcast and the way that Orson Welles was telling the story made it seem real, until you listen to the whole thing, you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely just a story here. But a lot of people hearing parts of it, thought it was like a true radio broadcast of reported news, right? But just seeing something in the sky, maybe reading a newspaper article, I think for the most part, people got a little skittish, but there wasn't a mass panic of people running to the stores and clearing out the aisles. Not like the ridiculous toilet paper fiasco a few years ago. That does happen where people do panic like that. I love the quote there from Men in Black. And I'll go ahead and throw up a couple memes here. But there's the one meme of the toilet paper scare is the reason why you people can't be told about aliens. There's that one, and then the one from Men in Black where Will Smith is like, people are smart, they'll get it, and or they can handle it. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, a person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky, etc., etc. So it could be a test in that vein. Since we have been talking a lot about, we've had all these UFO hearings here lately, and a lot of presentation of things in the sky that our government can't explain. The government is finally coming forth and saying, yeah, there are some things here that we can't explain. Now, you had the Arrow director come up and say, well, the Go Fast video was just, there was something else up in the sky. We're not going to tell you what it was. And it was creating this parallax effect. And again, it sounded like something out of Men in Black where, light was reflecting off of Venus into some swamp gas. Yeah, did sound a bit reminiscent of that. We're going to give you a BS excuse. and try to push it off to the side. But it's one of those cases these days, and I've talked about this in some of our Connecting the Universe classes every Wednesday night at 8:00 p.m., in which, they can't deny it anymore. Everybody's running around with one of these days, and they're taking HD or better videos with it. I mean, this one can go up to 4K. I usually leave it at HD because 4K takes up a lot of space. You're having 8K come out now and things like that. So people are capturing these amazing videos and photos of these things that are going on in the sky. So the government can no longer deny it. And so we're getting a little bit now. The government is doing just as much as they can, and they're not going to give you the full truth, but they can no longer deny it. So they can give you enough to say, yeah, something's going on, but we're going to control the narrative here. We'll have these hearings, we'll have these meetings, we'll assign a task force, we'll build Arrow. And with Arrow, it's only government employees or previous government employees that can report to that. Civilians cannot. And the civilians are your biggest source of data. So, yeah, to me, that's a little sketchy there. So they have to admit something. So, is this a test? There's been a long explanation for this one point. Is this a test of how people would react to visitors in the sky? That sort of thing. Are they going to have that mass panic like that? And we haven't seen that, right? We haven't seen that at all. People are annoyed because they're not getting any answers. They're curious as what's in the sky. A lot of people are like, hey, cool, let me get this photo or this video and try to get a viral video on social media with it. That's kind of the take now. So if that's the test, then I think we've come a long way since something like the Brookings report in 1960, where there's basically the crux of it was the idea that, hey, if extraterrestrials came and visited, that there would be this kind of mass panic around the globe and all this sort of thing, and we're just not seeing that right now. So talking about visitors from elsewhere, we'll just say that. Is this that? Is that what we're seeing here? Well, with Jeff Van Drew, I don't think these are, Iranian. There's no mothership out there. We would take care of that. We would have shot them down. But the one point that he brought up, and I guess this is where this idea came from of this Iranian mothership, is that the U.S. Coast Guard has reported these things flying in from the ocean, that they've been coming in from the sea. So if that's the case, and this is where the idea of this mothership and this sort of thing came from, if that's the case, that these things are coming in from the sea, are these being launched from, maybe not off of some ship out there, unless it's like the U.S. Navy, doing their testing like we were talking about in the previous point, sending them over. We've talked before about USOs, unidentified submerged objects. So basically, UFOs coming up out of the ocean, UAPs coming up out of the ocean. Those two terms, I'll just say this real quick. What we are seeing in the sky with these drones, these are actually UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Okay, people are using the term UAP these days, unidentified aerial phenomena. You could say it's that as well. I don't really think it's phenomena. We basically see it being some sort of machine for the most part, and we'll get to that in a second. To me, UAP would be more of like the light orbs and things like that people see in the sky. If it's a craft, that's flying. If it's more of the floating orb or orb zipping through the sky sort of thing, well, that would be more of like the UAP. But in any case, is this possibly coming from somewhere in the ocean, possibly an underwater base where these things are coming up and flying over the land? The question would be, why now? Why is this happening now and not in previous years? Well, that we can't answer. Would that, whatever civilization or beings, maybe they developed their technology and are testing, we don't know. We could speculate all day on why now. But is it possible these things are coming from some sort of submerged base or other submerged craft that's out there in the ocean and launching these things? You had that, they call it the Harvard research paper that came out this summer. Again, I say that this isn't anything that we haven't talked about before. I actually had one of the scientists on that paper reach out to me, responded on one of my Facebook posts. And it's actually the guy from Montana, the Montana guy that's in on that research, because he thought I was kind of slighting them. And it's like, no, I appreciate that science is starting to acknowledge that, yeah, we may have extraterrestrial walking amongst us. We may have extraterrestrials up on the moon. We may have extraterrestrials living underground or in other dimensions alongside of us. I mean, this is something that we in our community have been talking about for decades. And, I kind of rolled my eyes that here's science that is now just talking about it. And it's like they're finally catching up. I appreciate that they're doing that. What bothers me about it is they're getting the press, and I believe people like Clifford Mahooty, who passed away a couple of years ago, the Zuni elder, who, in defiance of his people who wanted to keep these things secret, came out talking about, hey, yeah, there are these interdimensional beings. It's part of our culture, the ant people and these sorts of things that are living underground in another dimension. You have people like that that talked about it for such a long time and never really got the credit for it. He wasn't emblazoned all across every major news outlet. It was more in our community, ancient aliens, that sort of thing. So that's an example. There are several others that have talked about this sort of thing as well. You can go back to even the pioneers like John Keel and Jacques Vallée talked a bit about this a bit too. But could it be some of those? Was the Harvard research paper that came out another one of those pieces to kind of keep this conversation going with all of these different types of topics? And we've seen, so people are like, is this disclosure? Well, they're not saying, walking up with your ET and say, here he is. That's not happening. And that would really be, disclosure. But there's enough things being put into place right now that, yes, we can say something interesting is going on here. Now, these photos of this giant ball in the sky, that's a little bit different than some of these other drone photos that have been taken, where they look more like craft and lights and things like that. In my book, Portals to the Stars, one of the things that I talk about in there is, in a lot of reports of UFOs, Sasquatch, and other things like this, people do report seeing like flashes of light, balls of light in the sky, these sorts of things. And so one of the theories that I postulate within that book is that many of these orbs that we're seeing, that people from like the paranormal community have said, well, these are energy of spirits, this sort of thing. And I'm not discrediting it. I believe some of them probably are. But I'm starting to look more into the idea, and I do present this theory in the book, that many of these giant balls of light and orbs that we see are the actual portals and stargates that these beings are using to either enter our world from somewhere else in the cosmos or into our world from some other dimension. And this goes back to the idea of the Einstein-Rosen bridge, wormholes, things like this. And they've even actually created a baby wormhole in the lab and all that. I don't have time to get into all of that right now, but the idea that you're going to have like this tunnel just hanging out there in space somewhere for people to walk through. When we think of like a portal, we always think of that. Here's this doorway, this circular tunnel you can walk through. That's just sitting there out in the middle of the wilderness or whatever. Doesn't really seem to. Basically, it's a circle, right? A circle that you walk through. But we're in three-dimensional space. So a circle in three-dimensional space would be a sphere. And so where we see this depicted really well, the Christopher Nolan film Interstellar from 2014 does a fantastic job with this, where they use that sphere out by Jupiter to pass through to some other galaxy somewhere. And so that is essentially the wormhole in three-dimensional space. So is that what we're seeing with this fantastic photos that have been taken here? Is that the actual, and maybe not necessarily the drone itself, but the portal through which the drone's used to enter into our world? So that's another kind of fifth thought to think of here. So again, I've linked the blog article I wrote down in the description. I will be posting this also to the Connected Universe portal. I hope you've appreciated Mike's Morning Mug here on the public side on the YouTube channel. Hopefully soon we'll get some answers to what these New Jersey drones are. I think we're going to be kept in the dark for a while because that's what our government tends to do. They usually don't tell us anything until they absolutely have to. They're going to control the narrative for as long as they can. So all right, everybody, until next time, time really exists.